CBS News Special Report, I'm John Dickerson. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was just sentenced to more than 4 years in prison. The 55-year-old was convicted back in July on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs had pleaded not guilty to all charges and was acquitted of 2 more serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering, which would have led to a potential life sentence. Moments before he was sentenced, Combs apologized for his disgusting, shameful, and sick behavior. Those are his characterizations. Our Jerika Duncan is outside the courthouse. Jerika has covered this case from the beginning. Jerika, your thoughts?
This was the most important day of this case, and Combs did give a statement about 12 minutes long where he spoke directly to the court. He talked about being personally responsible and apologized for what happened with his ex-girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and Jane. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and he said moments ago, I want to personally apologize to all of the victims of domestic violence. He said, quote, I hate myself right now. I was stripped to nothing. And when it comes to that video of him beating Cassie, he said, I was sick on drugs. I was out of control. I needed help. I make no excuses. I knew better. But the judge had some very sharp words in response to Combs. He acknowledged that he is trying to do better and told him that he hopes that he continues that, but instantly went into rejecting attempts to characterize what happened as, quote, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He said you abused your power and control you had over women you claimed you had loved. You abused them emotionally and physically. He said the evidence was massive. I was sitting right here, he said. We read it and we saw it. Images of gashes and bruises and broken doors, and I saw it in the video. It was savage. This is according to the judge. This is some of the comments that he made just moments ago in court. Alice Gaynor from WCBS is in the courtroom right now and sending out notes just to give us a sense of what Combs' demeanor is like right now. What is his family reacting to? I also want to note something that the judge mentioned in reference to Jane. She went by the pseudonym Jane, but this was also an ex-girlfriend. He said he referred to the brutal assault of Jane by saying, you kicked down 5 doors in her home, lifted her off the floor by her neck, punched her.
This is all bad, right? And we know that this is bad overall. But here's the thing. Diddy was convicted not for domestic violence, not for being angry, not for drugs, but he was convicted for prostitution, essentially, and going across state lines or bringing people across state lines to have a freak off. That's it. A lot of people will get lost in the sauce and they're going to say, oh man, the evidence, but the video and all of this stuff and so on and so forth. And I know that I'm on the opposite end of whatever the sentiment is for what people think should happen to Diddy because they don't necessarily like him. They don't care for the videos and all of this stuff. But the reality is this, is that they came to get him because they wanted to RICO him as though he's running a criminal enterprise like drugs everywhere and trafficking children. And he was already convicted in the court of public opinion well before he ever hit the stands. And this is still a railroading of men. As much as we don't want to acknowledge it and as much as people cannot be objective in order to remove their bias against Diddy, to then have an honest conversation that this was a witch hunt at best. And as the evidence came out and as the conversations proliferated, they never should have had him in court in the first place. And now Diddy is now having a 4.5 year or 4.1 year sentence for basically being a freak, which is crazy and nasty and wild and out of control. But I do not agree with the fact that this dude was convicted for being a freak. Again, if you want to have a conversation about how nasty he is, that's one thing. If you want to have a conversation about moral compasses, that's another thing. If you want to have a conversation about how wild it is to have freak-offs, that is another thing. But the fact of the matter is this. He was convicted for basically bringing in the dudes that bust down his chick and having all-night freak-offs. That is it. And Cassie benefited tens of millions of dollars as a result of it. And everybody was participatory, and everybody was grown, and everybody wanted to be a part of the Diddy party. And all you would hear is celebrities brag about how awesome Diddy parties are. And that's what he was convicted for. That's just the truth.
Kicked her,
Much
dragged
as y'all
her
don't
by
like
her hair, slapped her so hard she fell down. Jane, quote, her credibility testified to those things.
And he was never going to get a fair shake in New York, ever.
That she was a credible witness. So some sharp words again from the judge who just handed down that sentence, 50 months in prison. There will be time served, we believe, in consideration of that. So considering that, it might actually be 4 years. I'm just looking at a note, sentence is 50 months of incarceration. Agnifilo, which is the lead attorney for Combs, asking for more time to list facility recommendations. Also supervised release, 5 years. No reaction from Combs. He is still sitting, and there's a $500,000 fine. You can see behind me a little bit the crowd that has been gathered here pretty much all day as the family had been in and out of that courtroom. When I asked a couple of the defense attorneys how they were feeling today, they didn't have a comment. This day was very serious. They knew that going in. Not long ago in July, when it was that split verdict, they said this was a win for Combs. But the second part of that, the most important part of that, is the sentencing happening today. Again, the judge sentencing him to 50 months behind bars.
Jerika, what other activity did we have today? Did we hear, there were the victim statements. Was this a part of today's activities? And also, did the judge make any characterization of the final sentence relative to those harsh words that you that you quoted him as saying? In other words, did he match the two up? Did he say, I'm delivering this very harsh characterological verdict on you, and the sentencing matches that, or did he just not make that connection?
No, he did acknowledge that the sentence that prosecutors were asking for, 11 years, was a bit of an overreach. The probation report recommended 60 months. So when you look at the probation report of 60 months, he comes up with 50 months. The prosecutors wanted 11 years behind bars. It's not quite in the middle, but it's a far cry from the 14 months that the defense was asking for. Some other things worth noting. Combs was found guilty on the 2 counts of the Mann Act. This is transportation of people across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, and that is illegal in this country. Prosecutor Christy Slavic at one point during this testimony said that this case was not just about prostitution, but violence. She emphasized the violence. And that is what we heard a little bit from the judge today when he recanted some of the testimony that we heard during the trial. Cassie Ventura, the star witness, the ex-girlfriend of Combs, who was with him for about 10 years, released a statement before this sentencing was handed down saying, I am so scared that if he walks free, his first actions will be swift retribution towards me and others who spoke about him at this trial.
So fake.
All right, Jerika Duncan, thank you so much. Criminal defense.
Again, I don't agree with this. I never thought that Diddy was ever going to get a fair shake because he was already convicted in the court of public opinion before he ever even hit the trial. People were speculating about who all were on the tapes, and there was all of this conversation about whether or not Diddy was guilty for other things, and women wanted to see him burn. I don't even think that he should have been convicted on any of this type of stuff because he wasn't on trial for domestic violence, and he wasn't on trial, for anything that was relevant. Like he never committed any crime that was relevant to whatever it was that they was accusing him of and the RICO and all of that, right? The worst part about this is that as nasty and as wild as he is, I think that the worst part about this whole conversation is this. We don't believe in the justice system, and it's always going to be guilty until proven innocent. The only reason why he was able to get himself to this point was because he had a lot of money to be able to do so. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. We're going to talk about this tonight on After Hours. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.